This is the Italia Royal Channel, reporting from the agency in the Piazza di Spagna, Rome, presenting a talk show with your hosts, Signore Rosi and Signore Bianchi. Victory is here, ladies and gentlemen of the kingdom. Marshal Pietro Badoglio has signed an armistice with the Allied powers and declared war on Nazi Germany. Benito Mussolini still remains under arrest. The long period of suffering and strife for the Italian people is finally over. A new era for Italy.
It is over, and let us hope that it remains as such. Yet, maintaining peace and stability is no easy task. We must reflect and carefully store the reasoning behind the Second World War. We must glance at the beginning of the deterioration of Italy on the world stage.
For this, we have invited two individuals who have been very much involved in the dethroning of the Duce and reinstating of the prosperous kingdom. Ciano, son-in-law to Benito Mussolini, and Ciano and Grandi, both foreign ministers for the country under Il Duce, and members of the Fascist party.
Welcome, Signor Ciano.
It's an honor to be finally able to speak about the misdeeds of our nation. Keeping the secrets of the Duce and the handling of the regime has been gnawing at my soul.
Welcome, Signor Grandi.
It is a pleasure to speak of our nation.
Signor Ciano, when did the party begin to undergo the wrong path towards the war?
Anschluss was, without a doubt, the turning point in our foreign policy and our nation. Mussolini turned from an adamant enforcer of the Versailles Treaty, upholding the independence of Austria, to the polar opposite, granting the German regions to join as one. He was increasingly becoming a close friend of Hitler and Germany, the very people which he called barbarians several years prior, people who had to be pacified by civilized Rome.
It was indeed a turning point, from the democracies of the West, Britain and France, to Nazi Germany, don't you think?
Oh, undoubtedly. The policy had been heavily influenced by the earlier treaty, which had occurred between our nations, the Anti-Comintern Pact, an alliance against the ever-present threat of communism.
This was heightened by Mussolini's visit to Germany too, was it not?
Mussolini's visit to Germany was pivotal, as he no longer saw Hitler with the same buffoon hat with which he had seen him several years previously, during the Anschluss attempt in which he elucidated remain firm. He saw how Hitler tried to mimic him, and thus believed that he was more powerful in the relationship.
Is this visible during the Munich Agreement on Czechoslovakia and the Sudetenland crisis?
It was very visible during the negotiations of the agreement. Il Duce began to see the Allied powers as second-rate declining powers, with no signs of integration. On the other hand, he had the imposing Kruger, who, believing in similar policies to Mussolini, was dominating the outcome of the conference. Il Duce eventually did accept the terms of the Kruger, together with the Western powers. The Sudetenland was to be part of Germany. This, of course, did not happen, for Herr Hitler annexed the entire country, shedding a light upon my greatest fear, the treachery of Germany.
What do you mean, Signore Ciano, with the treachery of Germany?
Germany turned her back upon her promises for the first time in Czechoslovakia. Without any previous warning, they annexed the entirety of the country. This was, though, to an extent, suspected, yet it angered Mussolini nonetheless. He felt humiliated and abandoned by his newfound German ally, yet he was greeted at home like a hero.
Indeed, he was advocating for peace for the first time. Everyone at home was ecstatic. Peace was at everyone's forefront.
This, of course, can be expected. Italy had been in a continuous state of war for 10 years.
Did Mussolini do anything in protest of Czechoslovakia?
The invasion of Albania was his protest to Germany and the world. It was an action which Germany was not informed of beforehand. The Italian hound was still kicking, still mighty with the vibrant movement of fascism.
What do you think of Albania, Signor Grandi? You served in the front several years later during the Second World War, right?
I did, yes. The country was and still is ransacked by war. It lays in ruins. Signs of the Italian invasions were clearly visible despite it having been rather bloodless.
All to face Herr Hitler and impose Italy as a greater power.
Indeed, which to an extent succeeded in the eyes of Hitler.
Did Mussolini ever consider moving back to the Stresa front due to this clash with Hitler, Signor Ciano?
Without a doubt, he toyed with the idea. Yet, not much birthed from it. Instead, Il Duce moved towards the contrary, a pact with Hitler, a pact of steel.
We will now move on to a break. Don't leave your radios behind, for the discussion will continue after the break.
Buy your tricolor flags in your nearest convenience store. The Americans and the British are on their way to Rome. Let them feel the warmth of Italian hospitality, for they bring forth freedom, food, and lands. Peace has arrived. The liberators are here.
We're back from the break to continue the conversation with the most honorable Grandi and Ciano.
Thank you, Signor Abianchi.
Thank you very much.
What led to the Pact of Steel, Signore Ciano?
The Pact of Steel was the climax of our demise. It was his decision to convoke the creation of a defensive alliance, which cast away our opportunity of playing the middleman.
Middleman?
I advised the Duce to stand in the middle of the clashing powers, between the Western democracies and Herr Hitler, as both of them required Italian support to overcome the opposite, the determining weight. It was a position which I sought to exploit, and thus obtain further gains for our empire as we had done during Abyssinia.
But surely, it wasn't a bad treaty, the Pact of Steel?
I'm inclined to say the opposite. After all, it succeeded in crippling our country, and drawing us into the bloodiest war in history. We let them write up the articles of the treaty, and we accepted, thus falling into their hands to be mindlessly manipulated. The Axis powers were moving at different speeds, which would ultimately also cause the fall of the very alliance. This can be seen during Mussolini's invasion of Greece, which resulted in complete disaster and forced Hitler to intervene. The two powers were having troubles coordinating properly.
Yet you mention it being defensive. What happened during its negotiations?
It is just like the treachery of Czechoslovakia. German treachery, you see. They promised 4 years to us before any sort of major war. They gave us 4 months, an absolute atrocity. We did remain neutral at the face of such adversities. Mussolini ought to have been aware of the German dynamism during the negotiation of the treaty, just as bad as it had happened during the Munich conference for the fate of Czechoslovakia.
Why did Il Duce later decide to join the war?
Quite simply, we all thought the war to be over. Il Duce pushed for war in order to stand at the negotiating table and obtain gains for Italy.
Neither of you seem to have agreed with all Mussolini's policies or actions. Nonetheless, the war continued. So, was Mussolini really in control of Italy's foreign policy, and did he accept your advice?
To fully answer your question, Signore Rossi, let me go back to my first years of service. I fully supported Mussolini's early policies, his plans of penetrating into the Balkans to gain the promised land for Versailles, his involvement in the Spanish Civil War, and even his friendship with Germany. He would listen to me back then, as we both agreed. In me, he saw just another confirmation of his decisions. When I, using common sense, saw the flaws of siding with one power, instead of abusing the middleman position of the country, he turned against me. This was when I realized that I had to go back onto his grace to stay in my position, and continue pushing for the good of our country. Thus, I advocated for the invasion of Albania, to protect us against Germany. It felt as if, by stating my logical arguments, I was going out of favor.
Did Mussolini accept anybody's advice, Signor Grandi, or was it a symptom of Il Duce's late regime?
I had a major influence on Mussolini. I encouraged the Generalissimo to join the Locarno Pact, yet when I started advocating for joining the Anglo-French side in conflicts, Mussolini turned against me. Much to my humiliation, it was an obvious sentence. I got removed from my position and sent to London. Soon enough, though, I was recalled from London. I was far too friendly with the Entente of old, much to the discontent of the Duce. My attempts to prevent Italy's entry into the war were, like Ciano's, utterly ignored. Mussolini mostly ignored criticism, but loved listening to flattery. He never got tired of that. It was something which was necessary if one wants to remain in favor of the Duce.
It seems as if the Duce was mad with power, drowning in his own propaganda. But what effect did it have on the war?
It has led to the demise of our glorious nation. We stand now defeated at the hand of the Allies.
Why did we fail to achieve any success in war, despite the fact that Mussolini had been in power for nearly 20 years by 1940? Signor Grandi, you fought in the war. What can you tell us about it?
I think the main problem was that between 1935 and 1939 we were involved in two wars. Through getting us involved in so many conflicts, Mussolini diminished our military capacity. There were simply no more resources in our stocks.
So why did Il Duce join the conflict in 1940, while we still were unready for a war?
Well, as Ciano said previously, success deceived Mussolini into thinking that the war was almost over. He decided to join the war to obtain gains from the peace deals.
Thank you. However, this answer doesn't address why Il Duce joined the war in Greece and Egypt. Would you be so kind as to explain this paradox?
Il Duce thought that it would be an easy victory. Greece was at a weak state, and Egypt, unsupervised by the British, just another easy target. Furthermore, Herr Hitler had declared war on Russia, initiating his own famous Operation Barbarossa. He was making substantial gains while Italy stood on the sideline. Mussolini felt impelled to act.
What were the reasons why Mussolini failed then?
Mussolini relied too heavily on propaganda and thought that we owned 8 million bayonets, whilst we could only truly field 1.5 million men. Well, that was a mistake. He soon became a victim of his own propaganda. He ignored facts. At the same time, we can't forget the other reasons to Mussolini's failure. Il Duce was too entrapped by Hitler. He was so impressed with Germany's might, he started believing that with her as our ally, we could achieve our great ambitions. The problem was that Mussolini failed to indoctrinate us, regular Italians, to be belligerent.
What in the name of God is going on already? What is that horrendous sound?
It is so loud.
I don't know, it seems as if our signal is getting cut off.
I can recognize that sound. I'll be damned, it's a German bomber, just like the ones they lent us to fly over Aberdeen.